What's up, everybody? I'm back to answer George's questions and actually to give George a couple questions of my own. But first, I just wanted to tell everybody, look, this is not the permanent format that George and I are going to be using. We're actually going to be doing our normal shows every time George comes into town. We're still going to be filming the normal shows and probably more frequently, but we just decided to use some filler content so there's not these huge gaps in between the normal shows. And this way, we can kind of do Q&A stuff, get you guys involved in it. You can answer these questions on the comment board, or you can either email me at uncutkevin@gmail.com to ask George questions, or email George at uncutgeorge@gmail.com to ask him questions. First of all, let me get to the first question that George asked me. That was, did he think this was Anderson Silva's first time on PEDs? And what else is first and only time on PEDs? I'd have to believe no, and the reason I say this is because I think a lot of these guys are getting away with taking gear. Obviously, they don't have a good and an accurate test for GH, so I'm sure loads of them are fucking banging out GH. So far as one of the particular drugs that Anderson Silva got busted with, that was Masteron, and that is, if anybody is familiar with Masteron, that is a very fast-acting drug. That is a very fast-acting steroid. It is. I know there's people out there saying, "Oh, he's using it to recover from his injury." Anderson Silva's injury was over a year ago, so there's no reason for him to need Masteron to recover from this injury. It's not that type of drug. It is a drug that a lot of bodybuilders use pre-contest to cut down, to spare muscle as they're cutting weight and they're coming in to get, shredded for their shows. It is a fast-acting drug. It's in and out of the system. Whoever coached Anderson Silva on this drug knew that, and knew that they could probably beat the test using this type of drug. So with that being said, I doubt, as much as a fan as I am of Anderson Silva, that this was his first time actually using some type of PED. George's second question was, what type of predicament is the UFC in with all this happening with Anderson Silva, with Nick Diaz? I think it's tough for the UFC. I think it's just tough for MMA as a sport in whole. John Fitch just got popped. He's not a UFC athlete anymore, but here's another MMA fighter that's getting busted for PEDs. It seems to be a problem in the sport. I can understand why the guys are taking gear. I know they need it. It's some intense training leading up to the fights. You need, obviously you need sometimes you need these drugs to help you spare muscle, to give you energy, to keep your test levels high, to keep your aggression high. I get it, but when they're starting to do this extensive drug testing, and the UFC are getting their big faces popped, Chael Sonnen last year, Anderson Silva this year, Nick Diaz with the weed, and a lot of other athletes included, it puts the UFC in a bad predicament. It puts MMA in a bad predicament. And with the numbers and the pay-per-views they had in 2014, the numbers weren't as strong. So going into 2015, I think it's something that is going to really be a huge obstacle and hurdle for the UFC. I'm sure they'll find a way to kind of overcome it, but I see it being an ongoing problem in the sport. George's third question was, let me scroll down, was will the Seattle Seahawks re-sign Marshawn Lynch? And I believe that they will. There's a couple reasons. Marshawn Lynch's value went up so much after Pete Carroll did that asinine call during the Super Bowl. I mean, basically, Marshawn Lynch was the only person that left that stadium winning, and winning in the sense that he won because everybody was like, if you handed the ball off to him, you would have won the football game. So now his credibility goes up tremendously. If I'm him, I sit out the beginning of the 2015 season knowing that I'm going into the final year of my contract. I believe he's about $8.5 million against the cap next year, which puts him somewhere between, I think, like the 5th highest running back. So yeah, he can sit out, put the pressure on the Seahawks, and they're going to have to answer and deliver because they need him. It's not just what he does on the football field, but it's what he does in the locker room and how the other athletes stand behind him. So I think he's a very valuable commodity. Other places I could see him ending up. What did I have? I could see him returning to Buffalo. Buffalo. C.J. Spiller was injury riddled last year. Fred Jackson is getting old. I could see him go back there. I could also see him as going to the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have I mean, we saw what happened with Trent Richardson. He looked terrible last year. So the Colts need a running back. They're a great organization. I think they'd be willing to pay to have Marshawn Lynch there. I could also see him going to the Cardinals. Can you name who the Cardinals' #1 running back is? Or was last year? I'll tell you, Andre Ellington. Nobody knows who the fuck that is. The guy's talented. I'm sure he's playing in the NFL, but obviously the Cardinals are hurting at the running back position. They could use someone like Marshawn Lynch. Also, let me see. Oh, Minnesota. Minnesota, we don't know what's going to happen with Adrian Peterson. Is he going to return? Is he going to get reinstated? Are the Vikings going to keep him as a running back? So I could see him going to any of those 4 places: Minnesota, Indianapolis, Buffalo, or Arizona. And George's final question was, what was my opinion of Russell Wilson attending Rangers training camp? I didn't have much to say to that. I didn't think much about it because he did it last year. He's not participating in any games. He's not taking any live pitching, so he's not putting himself in any type of predicament where he could get injured. So I think it's fine. I think he's keeping his options open for the future. I mean, who knows? You know, if he does get injured in the future where he can't play football or a more contact sport, now he has something to fall back on. I think it's a smart move. I think it's smart to keep his relationship open with the Texas Rangers. I know if I was in his shoes, I'd be doing the exact same thing. Now, moving on to the questions I have for you this week, George. Let me get these up. First one. Let's see, I'm fucking shit up. Okay, first one. What are your thoughts on Chris Paul calling out this female referee? What are your thoughts? That's my first question. My second question is, Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva have been invited to meet at WrestleMania in a few weeks. What are your thoughts on that? My third question is Tiger Woods once again withdrew from a tournament. Once again, it's another back issue. Where at this point in time, where do you think Tiger Woods' career is heading? And my fourth and final question for you, Mr. Bedford, is when do you think Adrian Peterson will be reinstated? If and when he's reinstated, when will it happen? And where do you think he'll go? Do you think he'll end up back in Minnesota, or do you think he'll end up somewhere else? And on that note, I'm out.